All right, so this is my speech. So I have chosen the topic of the benefits of multilingualism. Now, multilingualism is defined as the ability to speak more than one language. Now, I find this topic actually super interesting because I speak another language in addition to English as well. Now, speaking another language isn't an easy thing to learn, but there are tons of benefits to it. Now, here in the US, where most people already speak English, it may not seem like it would really relate to you, but there are tons of benefits, including increased memory and cognitive function, better communication skills, and pay raises in the workplace, and anti-aging effects all come with multilingualism. Now, if you look up a statistic by the Linguistic Society of America, you will find that more than 50% of every person in the world speaks another language. Now, if you look up how many of those people speak English, you will find that 1.35 billion people speak English in the world, and that comes from Babbel magazine. Now, Babbel magazine also tells us that out of that 1.35 billion, only 360 million of those people are native English speakers. There are many people in the world that don't even just speak a second language, they'll speak 5 or 6 different languages. I have several friends that come from the Philippines, right here on number 1, and Vanuatu, which is a group of islands in the South Pacific, which is number 2. Now, both of these islands have over 1,000 different languages spoken there. My friend that comes from the Philippines speaks 4 different languages. And that was just growing up before he even reached the age of 16. And my friend that is from Vanuatu, he speaks 7 different languages. And that was all before the age of 25. Now, if that doesn't convince you that, we kind of need to step it up and learn another language, then hopefully these will. So multilinguals, they have to learn an entire new vocabulary as part of this language. And there's a study done by Dr. Merriam titled "The Bilingual Advantage in Novel Word Learning." And what she found is that bilinguals and multilinguals have better episodic memory function versus monolinguals. They're able to remember another word faster, and they have faster reaction times because their brain is already trying to process all of that different information. Now, not only that, but because of that, their frontal lobe also reacts faster than everything else. There's another study done by Dr. Grady. It's talking about the effect of bilingualism on cognitive control. And what he said is, in your frontal lobe, when you learn another language, that never shuts off. So when I'm talking right now, my brain has to actively shut down the other language. That way, only English comes out. Now, because of that, it puts an increased stress on the frontal lobe, but the frontal lobe learns to adapt. So because of that, when you're doing other things that aren't language related, it's faster because it's already adjusted to that increased stress. Now you're thinking, that's probably pretty cool, but I really just want to hear about the monetary value. Now, that's a big part of this. So if we go to the study, which was done by Dr. Valancourt, it talks about the economics of multilinguals in the workplace. And they have done several studies over many different companies, and they have found that multilinguals on average earn more in the workplace. Now, that's because often when you learn another language, you are worth more to the company. There are tons of businessmen that are multilingual, and this can really help your communication skills. Now, in addition to communication skills, when you're learning another language, you end up usually learning the culture. And that makes you more empathetic. So not only do you make more money, but you're more empathetic, which will help you in business. Now, these are all great. You can earn as much money as you want, but eventually you're going to age out and your brain is going to deteriorate. Well, if you're a multilingual, this doesn't necessarily have to be as fast as it is with other people. There was a recent study done in 2016 talking about the delay of dementia in multilinguals, and they have found that on average, people that have spoken more than one language throughout a good portion of their life, that the dementia symptoms are delayed by an average of 5 years. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but that can be a big difference. That's 5 years that you can spend with your family that you didn't have before. Now, not only that, but there's another study that is talking about cognitive control, cognitive reserve, and memory in the aging bilingual brain. And that study, what it talks about is how in monolinguals, as they age, the parietal lobes and the temporal lobes tend to get diminished a little bit. I don't know how well you can see the color change between the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe and parietal lobe on this, but it's a little bit lighter because as we age, our brain doesn't use as much of the posterior brain, but it goes more up into the frontal lobe. So the regular elderly person will use more of their frontal lobe versus their parietal and temporal lobes, and it's a little bit harder for the brain to make those connections. But whereas in a bilingual, you'll see that there's no difference between the parietal, temporal, and frontal lobes, and the connections are just the same because the brain has already had to adapt to all of that increased stress throughout the years of speaking another language fluently. And that helps delay the onset of cognitive decline in elderly people. Now I don't know about you, but all of these are pretty good benefits to me, and it seems like learning another language, with the increased memory and the increased economic and empathetic status, and the anti-aging effects, those are really good just for learning another language. Yeah.